Welcome to another episode of First Pass. I know everyone has been waiting patiently for a new release, so I'll dive right into it. Given the immense threat the remaining Super Star Destroyers and hordes of ISDs posed against the infant New Republic after the Battle of Endor, a suitable response was required. Without the Legends Viscount-class Star Defender to match the Star Dreadnoughts, and being still outnumbered using normal Mon Calamari cruisers, we entered the New Republic's hastily produced line of battleships, the Starhawk and MC85 classes respectively. So without further ado, both of these vessels were produced in or around 5 ABY, which is also the same year that the Battle of Jakku took place. The Starhawk series of battleship was produced explicitly prior to the close of the Galactic Civil War, with the first 3 of these ships participating in the conflict's final battle. These original ships were pressed into service so quickly due to the New Republic's desperation, and namely that they were entirely built from partial or otherwise disassembled Imperial Star Destroyers. Using the pre-built superstructures, smarter weapons layout, and uniquely powerful tractor beam technology, the Starhawk class was born from necessity. Taking the Star Destroyer design principles of brute force and forward-arcing firepower, New Republic engineers gave the 2,400-meter vessel a formidable array of weapons, the bulk of which were harvested from captured Imperial ships. 10 octuple barbette turbo lasers and 24 heavy turbo lasers gave the battleship sufficient firepower to take on 1 or 2 ISDs simultaneously, though any more would collapse in offensive operation without proper support. A huge complement of 44 capital-grade ion cannons and auxiliary ion torpedo launchers provided powerful anti-shield capabilities, along with disabling vessels up to but not including Super Star Destroyers, their shields proving too much. For heavy secondary firepower, it wielded 32 concussion missile launchers and a series of 36 point defense laser cannons for anti-starfighter duty. A particularly unique combat system was the 6 Magnite tractor beams that were 10 times more powerful than the original ISD ones. One such system famously brought down the Empire's last Super Star Destroyer to its demise at the Battle of Jakku. This could keep an enemy vessel in weapons range as long as the Starhawk wanted, or dragging it to its demise, depending on the situation. Augmenting the battleship's formidable arsenal was its wing of Starfighters, hailing directly from their use by the Rebellion. In its 2 hangars, it carries a total of 36 T-65B X-Wing Starfighters, 24 Z-1 A-Wing Interceptors, and 12 ASF-01 B-Wing fighter bombers. This onboard fleet is comparable to that of a larger-than-normal MC-80 Liberty type complement of Starfighters, which usually only carry 36 fighters, but did have a surge capacity of up to 120. Overall though, the fighters are there to complement the Starhawk's own weapons, then be the main weapons themselves. That being said, there is nothing really stopping the fighters from engaging Imperial vessels at long range, or a hyper jump away, as is normal for Rebel and early Republic tactics to do so. Complementing the raw firepower of the Starhawk series was the much more defensively minded MC85 Heavy Star Cruiser, a continuation of the famously reliable Mon Calamari Star Cruisers. Though fairly ambiguous, the class is suspected of being introduced post-war later in 5 ABY during a short-lived fleet buildup effort. It is, however, unknown how many were actually constructed and kept in the New Republic's fleet, with what seems like possible MC-85s over the ill-fated Hosnian system as part of the defense fleet, though this is pure speculation. On the other hand, the famous Kratos, as shown in the film The Last Jedi, was definitively a surviving MC-85, though a modified and outdated one by the time of the movie. The bulk of the changes seem restricted to automating the vessel, allowing a crew as small as 210 or so to operate the massive ship, an absolute necessity for the manpower-starved resistance. Otherwise, the ship appears to be pristine, if aged. Example of this massive class of star cruiser, the MC-85 is a whopping 3,438 meters in length, being internally classified as a heavy cruiser, though it was also sometimes referred to as a fast cruiser due to its unusually powerful engines and high speed. Being a full kilometer longer than the Starhawk class, it'd be expected to carry an even larger arsenal, but is strangely not the case. As an example, the Rebel Alliance's own equivalent of the Raddus was Admiral Akbar's personal flagship of Home 1. It was nearly twice as well armed despite being 2/5 its size at 1,300 meters in length. Here is a side-by-side comparison to truly show the disparity in firepower of an armed exploration cruiser in the service of rebels and a dedicated warship of a galactic government. Home 1 had 36 heavy turbo lasers versus the Raddus's own 18, and the same number of heavy ion cannons at 36 and 18 respectively. Thankfully, the MC-85 did carry secondary weapons to supplement the main turbo lasers and ion cannons. For additional anti-ship firepower, it was equipped with 6 proton torpedo launchers which would excel in dealing with close quarters combat with smaller capital ships, though still not enough to threaten similarly sized vessels. To round off the loadout, it had 12 defensive laser cannons to protect against starfighters, though it would only be a token weapon system, as the Sunfighter complement would have to be the main line of defense against enemy strike craft. As the standard for Rebel strategy to rely heavily on starfighters for both offensive and defensive operations, with capital ships generally as support craft. Home 1 carried up to 120 assorted fighters and bombers of the A, B, X, and Y-wing varieties. The MC85 class, on the other hand, or more specifically the Ratus, only had a minute fighter complement of less than a dozen. But then again, since it could carry over 20 large shuttles, so maybe the class could carry up to or more than 120 fighters, though they were not used due to limited available manpower. Only with a full fighter complement, and more helpfully a bomber complement, would an MC85 truly be combat effective. Though at that point it's functionally more of a carrier cruiser than a true battleship. For a quick comparison of a similarly sized battleship with a more proper armament would be the 3,170 meter Lucrehall class battleship from the Clone Wars era. It was armed with 51 turbo lasers, 520 assault laser cannons, and 185 point defense laser quad cannons, making it a true mobile fortress protected by incredibly powerful shielding, though likely less capable than the MC85's shielding for obvious reasons. At roughly the same size as the Ratus, it packs over 10 times the firepower and 10 to 100 times the fighter complement, showing the wasted potential the vessel's design had. Its sole advantages being its high speed and unmatchable shields, lending more to a role as a mobile base for limited fighter operations, either deep in enemy territory, or as a cost-effective means of patrolling large swaths of territory with fewer vessels, both of which were likely true of this odd class. While not a true battleship in role nor classification, the MC85 still achieved power parity, given its immense size and technically formidable arsenal, even if it was vastly undergunned for a ship of its size. One last note, it should be known that these two classes are technically classified as battle cruisers under the Anaxis War College system, as the vessels are between 2 and 5 kilometers in length. But let's be honest, Starhawk class battleship and MC85 heavy star cruiser sound a whole lot cooler. And, much like the Honor Your Class Star Destroyer video, the images of the Starhawk were provided courtesy of, and a big thanks to, Matt Donnie, who you can check out more of his work at DeviantArt.com. Link in the description below. And with that, we've covered 2 battleships wielded by the New Republic and their differences in their role of the burgeoning military. If you have ideas or suggestions for other ships or verses, please comment below. If you'd like to, please support us on Patreon. Thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe for more content. And remember, this was your first pass at New Republic Battleships.